So this is the most pirated games in March 2017. Don't forget, this video is for informational and educational purposes only, and if you like it, support the developers and buy it when it's a fair price. A few new entries again this month. Number one, a new entry, we've got Dark Souls 3, The Ring City. Now, Dark Souls 3 has been previously available as a pirated game. The Ring City is newly cracked, however. Now, number two, and this was a big surprise to me when I saw it, actually. And in fact, it is sort of not a PC game, although we mostly only cover PC games, but it runs on a PC, so I guess it is a PC game. Now, that is The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild.
I was really perplexed when I saw this in the charts.
Yeah, now this is an interesting one. Basically, there is an emulator. It's a Wii U emulator. It's called CEMU. I don't know if I got the pronunciation right. It's CEMU. And it's Breath of the Wild, the Wii U version, has been adapted to run in the CEMU emulator. What I think has prompted a rush of downloads for this is, just to explain, just to put a bit of context to this, games tend to take two forms when they're posted on pirated websites. There are the games, sometimes games are just basically put in their original form, and they tend to be around 50 gigabytes when that's the case. So they're just basically there unaltered, but for any DRM being removed that may have been there to begin with. But there's a second kind of game, and this is the repack. Now, what repacks tend to be is the uploader will basically go through the files. They'll take out any extraneous rubbish that doesn't need to be there. For example, language files that you'll never use, or they'll take files and they will compress them. And the downside of that is that you will basically have to decompress them on your PC. So something that would normally take 5 minutes to install may take half an hour or something to install. But the upside of that, and it's a big upside, is that it's a much smaller file, and so it's easier to download. And quite often as well, repackers modify the file so it'll automatically apply any cracks, or it'll package together certain games with applications. And this is basically what's happened with The Legend of Zelda. Probably the most famous repacker of the moment is, and I think it's actually a chap, despite the name, somebody called FitGirl. Now, FitGirl has been responsible for loads of really top quality repacks. Yes, it takes about 45 minutes to install the game. No, that doesn't matter, because they are much smaller file sizes and they have updates applied to them, and they're actually very, very good quality. Now, FitGirl has basically taken the ISO for Breath of the Wild, the RIP, I suppose, of the Wii U game, and they package this with the installer. So when you install this, it basically just opens up the emulator and opens up Breath of the Wild, and it just works. Because getting emulators to work is a bit of a process. Now, you're actually going to see this running on the screen now, because I did actually try this out. And just to point out straight away, I do have a Switch, and I do have a retail copy of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So there's no lost copies here, lost sales here rather. Now, I found I've got quite a serious graphics card in my PC. I've got I'll put my full specs in the description below, but I've got an NVIDIA 1080 graphics card, and I was getting, the game was sort of averaging at around about 15 frames per second. It's the Wii U version, first of all, so it doesn't look quite as nice as the Switch version. Let's get that out of the way straight away, although it does actually still look fairly good. The second point I would like to make, though, is although it's 15 frames per second, it was still playable, but the version I was playing, which was the FitGirl repack, it's basically kept hanging, and it would hang for a few seconds periodically. So if you're running down a hill, it would just suddenly stop, and I found that actually was much, much more annoying than the low frame rate. I did also find a few bugs. For example, when I tried to dive into a lake, Link actually just went straight through the water and smacked his face on the riverbank.
That's quite funny.
It was quite amusing, yeah. And also when running around, quite often he's up to his knees in the ground, so he sinks into the ground, as though everything is a kind of marshland, I suppose.
So there's still a lot of work left then for that to obviously be more playable, because that doesn't sound very playable at the moment.
Breath of the Wild is a very good, we gave it 89% in our review. It's a very good, very large, very sweeping game. I wouldn't recommend playing it in that form. However, in just the few days since I've actually played this, a lot of people have been releasing mods for CEMU, or CEMU, or however it's pronounced, and actually it's actually running a lot better and a lot more reliably. So what I intend to actually do is to keep an eye on this, because as well there is a Patreon going for CEMU, and if you donate to the Patreon, then you get the newer builds rather of CEMU about a week in advance. So people have got newer builds of CEMU, and I think that's why they're getting better mileage out of the game than I am. Number 3, we've got another new entry. I say new entry, it's of course the game is actually quite old now. It's Hitman, Season 1 of Hitman. I was on the fence about whether to include this, because a lot of people have had issues with the installer. Also, the original version of the game is 63 gigabytes. It's huge.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest I've seen, actually. But again, the FitGirl repack of this is apparently better. I think FitGirl does actually fix the installer issues. We haven't actually tested that, so we can't say either way.
I mean, we know why it's so big. It's all the textures of his bald head, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the shine from various angles and various light sources off of his head does actually take quite a lot of room.
That's about 40 gig at least.
I should actually also point out, it is actually a really generously proportioned game because it was released as a series of smaller episodes. When you actually put all of those together, it's actually a really generous package. So I'm sure probably a lot of those are sound files that don't need to be there, though, as is always the case. Number 4, we've got Mafia 3, which has been in the charts before, but this is actually Faster Baby, which is standalone downloadable content. So you can download that and play that without needing a copy of the original Mafia 3. Although the Mafia 3, I should point out, has also been hacked. I believe that only used Steam DRM, so that was actually a really quick job. Just Cause 3 is still at number 5. GTA 5 is at number 6. The Sims 4, who cares? Number 8, Pro Evolution Soccer, which, well, FIFA hasn't been hacked yet, so that's all people have. New entry at number 9, we've got X-Plane 11 and the Global Scenery DLC. I've got to say, the Global Scenery DLC by itself was absolutely massive. I'm assuming it's a flight simulator. I'm not really into those. I don't know if you are.
No, I've never heard of that, to be honest.
But yeah, it's really flown straight into the charts there. Battlefield 1, which I believe was a new entry. Was it last month or the month before?
I couldn't tell you. It's one of the last 2 months.
It was a new entry at some point this year. This is a single-player campaign of Battlefield 1, which is actually very decent. We gave it 80% in our review. Right, so we've got the full top 25 down in the description below. We're going to pick out a few highlights.
Just to pick out one of them, I mean, I'm surprised Walking Dead Episode 3 didn't, enter a little bit higher for 1 month, then drop madly next month.
Yeah, I think the thing with The Walking Dead is, I mean, first of all, there was a really long gap, as usual, as always with Telltale, between episodes 1 and 2 and episodes 3, because they released 1 and 2 together, and then I think it was something like 3 or 4 months before episode 3 came along. And by that stage, I think there's actually only a minority of people who are still downloading and playing the episodes as they become available. I think most people probably just give up and say, right, I'll come back to that when the whole thing's out. Homefront: The Revolution's at 12, Infinite Warfare at number 13, Resident Evil 7, Biohazard, that was very, very quickly cracked when that was released, that's at number 15. Far Cry Primal still holding on at number 17, even though that's a really old game, but a relatively recent crack. And of course, the perennial favourite, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt Game of the Year edition at number 23. DRM free, of course, and it sold fantastically well as a result of that. Hint to publishers, don't put DRM in your games, there's no point. People will buy it if they like it.
There's so many Denuvo titles in that top 25 now.
Exactly, and when you consider that every single Denuvo title in the top 25, behind every one of those, there is a developer who has paid out what is rumoured to be around 100 or north of $100,000 for that DRM. Now, and then we're sitting here basically explaining how those games are in the most pirated games for that month. Why are they wasting their money on it? It just makes no sense to me. Right, let's talk about this month's piracy news. First of all, we got an interesting news bite. We recently went to EGX Rezzed, which is an indie-focused gaming expo, and we had a playthrough and a little chat with the developers of Rime. Rime is this really nice-looking sort of explore 'em up indie game. Really nice colour palette. Originally it was going to be a PlayStation 4 exclusive. Now it's going to be multi-platform.
Who knows what went through Sony's head?
Who knows what the hell Sony does? But I asked the developer basically what DRM he was going to be using. I said, will he be using Denuvo in Rime? He looked a bit confused at first, but when he actually realised what I was talking about, he said, as far as he's aware, it's going to be using Steam DRM and not Denuvo, which is absolutely fantastic news. So if there are any of you who are looking forward to Rime, but who quite rightly don't install games that use Denuvo, because you don't want that rubbish on your PC, no problem, because Rime is not going to be using it. You heard it here first, guys. Second piracy news story of the month. Well, just on the literally within moments of us recording this video, it has been announced that Mass Effect Andromeda has been cracked, so we expect this to have a really high position in the most pirated games in April when we record that video next month.
It's a massive, massive game as well, so to crack that quickly, I mean, it's one thing doing Resident Evil Biohazard, because that's a lot smaller game. Something as big as Mass Effect, I mean, for this quickly, it's quite an achievement. It's
an amazing achievement. I'm honestly in so much awe of the release groups who have managed to take a game that huge and to have taken a DRM that is as complicated to circumvent as Denuvo and absolutely slap it senseless in the space of, what's that, just over a week? That is absolutely incredible, and I really hope publishers are taking notice of this. I really hope someone in EA is looking at this and saying, do you know what, guys? I don't think that $100,000 that we spent on putting that rubbish in our game was actually worth it.
No, but you've got to remember, it protected for initial 1 week launch window for really important 1 week.
Of course, it's so important, in fact, that EA actually allows people to play the first 10 hours of the game a week before it released. That's how important that launch window is. So yeah, I really do hope the message is loud and clear here. Publishers really need to... They need to take a leaf out of the books of the developers of Rime. Tequila Works. Don't waste your money on that rubbish. It's ridiculous. You know, the release groups are perfectly capable of circumventing. It's absolutely pointless. It's a waste of money. Put that money, you know, Mass Effect Andromeda, they could have put that money into the facial animations. I mean, I should point out, actually, Mass Effect Andromeda is actually a really good game, and we are
really good game.
We're in the process of reviewing that now, so look out for that. Anyway, guys, let us know what you think in the comments below. Have you played... I'm particularly interested to know if you guys have played Breath of the Wild using the CEMU emulator yet. You know, what mods do you recommend? What do you think we should try? Because we're actually going to do some experiments with this on our end as well, and hopefully we'll have something to talk about in the next video. Do let us know. Do please also hit the like and subscribe buttons. Loads more at parallaxlive.com. Thanks ever so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys in the next video.